はい、こんにちは。今回はハーストーリー続きをやっていきます。で、前回ちょっと先を見ちゃったんですけれども、家族ぐらいまで行ったんじゃなかったかな。で、ガラスっていうのがあるんで、これを見ていきましょう。
And the Glaziers. I worked there some weekends and Simon had a part-time job there too. That was Eric's generosity. He was always good at helping out other people's children. Simon was quiet, more thoughtful than the other boys. Even then, he had a sense of craftsmanship. Wasn't always rushing stuff. Boys that age are just running around like headless chickens most of the time, you know? Plus he had that look. He looked like a fairy tale prince from one of my books.
めっちゃ笑ってんな。ちょっと、どっちにしろ反応が変ですよね。旦那さん、このサイモンっていうのは殺されたんですよ。で、殺したのが彼女かもしれないっていう状況なんですけれども、そのサイモンを思い出して笑うっていうことって変な感じがするんですけど、変な感じしませんかね。しますよね。だとしたらこれがこの人がね、本当にやっている行動だという前提で見て、それがそれがだとしたらサイコパスかソシオパスということになりますよね。そういう結論だと踏んでいいのかどうか、ちょっとね、すごく違和感を感じるんですよ。
I wouldn't say that. It could be passionate. It's just, it was more than that. It wasn't just sex like it had been with the other boys. Have I ever cheated on Simon? You asked that question yesterday.
この辺がね、要は本当に双子なのか双子じゃないのか、迷わせるところですが、多分もうちょっと後に進まないと見ていない情報があると思うんですよね。
Simon was very moral about that sort of thing. He wouldn't just walk out there and sleep with anyone. He wasn't that kind of guy. He took his marriage very seriously. 見てないやつがあるんで、これ見たいんですけど、全部今順番に見ていってますので。 Simon never cheated on me. He was devoted to me, and I was devoted to him. Nothing in life is easy. We were good to each other. Life isn't a fairy tale. You do what you can.
ここか。これは前にも見たと思うんですが、1個目は見てないのかな。
You're reaching here. And I don't know why. No, I've never cheated on anyone. I've never taken anything from anyone. Simon's dead. But I have my baby to care for. Why are you trying to make me sad? Why are you so obsessed with sex and affairs? You cheated on your wife. Is this your thing? どういう前提で彼女の反応を考えればいいのかわからなくなってくるよな。 What did your wife do? She didn't kill you. You think I killed Simon because he was having an affair? Well, I didn't kill him. I wasn't even there. I was in Glasgow worrying about whether my baby was still growing inside me. I mean, why would I kill Simon? I loved him.
あれ？この次、ここが、サイトによると猫って書いてあるんですが、猫では続きは出てきませんね。まあ一回見てるんでいいでしょう。
What did your wife do? She didn't kill you.
これは見ましたね。んで、次これなのかな。
I mean, what if they were crazy? You hear about these crazy people all the time. I mean, why would anyone who knew Simon want to kill him?
みんなに愛されてたってみんなに愛されてる人
No. I've had enough coffee for today, thanks. Glass of water.
コーヒーでも飲みますかって言ったんですね。で、水でいいですと。これ見てないんですよね。カメラ目線になってますね。
Is that camera recording?
録画してますよ。
If you put me on, you've been framed. I want the money.
こういうセリフが迷わせるんですよね。どっちだろ
Yeah, that's me. But February, and that was months ago. What's that got to do with Simon's murder?
この写真を見てくださいって言って何か証拠ビデオの録画かなんかを見せてるんだと思いますね。
Well, I don't know. I probably had to pop out and get something, that's why I was speeding. And that wouldn't have been noted on my timesheet. But I really can't remember back to February.
変換できてなかった。
I remember the ticket, of course. I paid it without telling Simon. Didn't want to get told off. And they put points on the licence.
うん。
You must be desperate for leads if you're getting hung up over 6-month-old speeding tickets.
この運転ってキーワードでも多分見ていると思うので。
Like I said, I think I was popping out to get something, ran out of something, had to grab something. I sometimes drive too fast. If you want, you can arrest me for that.
切符を切られたっつって罰金払ってないの？これさっき見たやつですね。お？これ全然、ここ全然見てないですね。多分ここ3つなんでしょう。
There was a conference, something to do with double glazing in Oxford.
ガラス。
Are you sure? What would he be doing in Oxford if there was no conference? I remember calling him. He said it was boring and he spent most of the time at the bar.
サイモンがオックスフォードに行ってた。その間に
It was supposed to be a secret. Just because Simon is dead doesn't mean I have to give up all his secrets. It doesn't have anything to do with what happened to Simon. No one murdered my husband because he cheated his expenses for a romantic weekend in Oxford.
犯人があなただとしたらあり得ることですよって。あれ、2つぐらい飛んじゃいましたね。
And the hotel said he was there?
サイモンが一人じゃなかったっていうようなことをホテルの人が言ったのかな。
Okay, you got me. I'll confess. We were there. It was a dirty weekend. Simon was going to expense it, pretend it was a business trip. I used a made-up name. We stayed at the hotel, had room service, didn't leave the room, had a great view of the river, and you could hear the church bells. Like you said, it was very romantic. Okay, you got.
これ今見たやつですね。これも見たやつかな。
was supposed to be a secret. Just because
どっちも見てますね。そうそう。急にギターを弾くんですよね。これがどこなんだろうか。
You want me to play something? I'm not the world's greatest guitar player. Okay. Probably needs tuning. No. It's okay. How about a traditional ballad? Should be right up your street. Sisters came walking by the sea. Oh, the wind and the rain. The eldest one pushed the other one in. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. See, they both had a love for the captain's son. Oh, the wind and the rain, but he only cared for the youngest one. Oh, the dreadful wind. Oh, the eldest envied her sister fair. Oh, the wind and the rain, with a pretty little face and her long blonde hair. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. So she pushed her in and held her down. Oh, the wind and the rain watched her as she slowly drowned. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. But she floated up and she floated down. Oh, the wind and the rain floated till a ship came by. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. Out comes the captain's son. Oh, the wind and the rain. Father dear, here swims and swans. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. And then it gets really weird, so I think that's a good place to stop. Really? Okay. Here's the rest. Oh, they laid a body on the dock tonight. Oh, the wind and the rain, till a fiddler with a fiddle came walking by. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. And he made a fiddle bow of her long hair. Oh, the wind and the rain. Yes, he made a fiddle bow of her long blonde hair. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. And he made fiddle pegs of her finger bows. Oh, the wind and the rain. Yes, he made fiddle pegs from her finger bows. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. And he made a fiddle out of her breastbone. Oh, the wind and rain. The sound could pierce her heart of stone. Oh, the dreadful wind and rain. But the only tune that the fiddle could play was, oh, the wind and the rain. Yes, the only tune that the fiddle could play was, oh, the dreadful wind and rain. you think maybe used as evidence against you?
わざわざそんなこと言ってますね。まあ証拠品として押収したギターを持ってきたんでしょうね、刑事が。これ見てないですね。
Simon and Eric arguing? No, I can't imagine they'd be arguing. They get on so well. Unless it was something to do with work. Maybe Simon was being too much of a perfectionist. But I don't know. You should ask Diane.
これで5日目の取り調べは終わるわけです。で、前回ちらっと見ましたが、これが6日目になるわけですね。
Coffee, I guess. Milk and sugar.
はい。で、いろいろ言って、これで3日連続よね。私容疑者なのとか言うんですよね。
This is the third day running you've called me in. I speak to Doug and Eleanor every day. They say you've been asking a lot of questions. About me. Should I be worried? Am I a suspect?
この辺は見ているはずなんで、飛ばしますね。途中で、怒るんですね。
Can I leave? Are you going to arrest me? No. They'd laugh you out of the building. A lawyer would make mincemeat of you. Are you arresting me? No. Fuck off. Open this door.
はい。で、これが、6日目ですね。次見てないんですね。7日目。7日目になると、もうこの白い衣装になってますね。
This is a nicer room. This is where you take people when it's time to arrest them.
うん。
Yes, I understand my rights. No, I don't need a lawyer.
この時点では、まあ、弁護士は必要ないと言ってるんですね。ここの動画は見ましたね。はい。で、ここだと思います。これは見てないですね。
Yes, no lawyer. What are you going to arrest me for?
で、この後はちょっと見てますね。この後、1、2、3、4つぐらい。この後、嘘発見器にかけられるわけですが、その前の段階ですね。
You've got it wrong. You've got the wrong person.
まだとぼけているってことなのか。
Yes, I'll take a lie detector test.
はい。これでいいのかな？
I've never taken a lie detector test before. Does it really work?
ん。
Yes, my name is Hannah Smith. Oh, shit. Sorry.
シット、ソーリーって言ってるのは、まあ、大体の人は分かってると思いますけど、嘘発見器っていうのは、まあ、基本的に、はいかいえで答えてくださいっていうふうに、やるんですが、まあ、嘘発見器に通じている人が、検出するときは、はいかいいえで答えさせる必要もないらしいですね。何を質問してどう答えたか、そしてどう反応したかっていうのをよく見ることによって、何が精神状態がどういうふうに起こっていたかっていうのを割と見抜けるらしいです。噂ですけどね。僕も嘘発見器をかけられたこともありませんし、分析もしたこともありませんので、まあ、ごまかせるっていう話もありますけどね。まあ、嘘発見器が正しいんだとしたら、この人はハナ・スミスってことになりますが、嘘発見器をごまかしている可能性もあるんですね。
Sorry. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yes.
はい。で、この後ですね、回答が続きます。はいといいえしか、基本的にはこれ質問を録画されていないので、
Yes.
はい。はいといいえしか言わないんですね。
Yes.
トーンが変わってるのが面白いんですが、質問がわからないんです。
Yes.
これがこのゲームの肝ですね。
Yes.
しかし、嘘発見器が反応するんですね。これはノーしか言ってないですね。
No.
No。これはスター・ウォーズですけどね。
No.
No。微妙にね、笑ったりしてるんですよ。
No.
No。
No.
No。そうか。で、この後ですね。嘘発見器にかけられた彼女が、嘘発見器ってすごいわね。名前のところだけ反応したっていうことねっていうことを言うんですよね。ということは、だから私はハナ・スミスじゃない、イブだっていう反応を示したっていうことかと思われるんですが、
I can take this stuff off now. Did I prove I'm innocent?
まあ少々強引な感じがするんですよね。嘘発見器っていうのは、まあこれイギリスなので、どういうふうに証拠で使われるかわからないんですが、少なくとも日本では、重要な証拠としては扱われないんじゃなかったかな。アメリカでもまあ、陪審員が判断する場合は、まあ、そういう証拠を提出して、まあ、陪審が判断するってことはあるかもしれませんが、まあ、これ逮捕の段階ですからね、起訴されて裁判にかけられたかどうかは分かんないんですよね。ここで、
Yes. My name is Hannah Smith.
これは前のやつですね。
Oh, shit. Sorry. My name. That was the only question I failed.
はい。
The lie detector works.
嘘発見器ってすごいよねっていうことは、まあ、ハナ・スミスですって言って、ああ、ごめんなさいって言ってごまかしたんですけど、しかし、ハナ・スミスですって言ったのは、自分で言ってんですよね。イエスって言った後に、ハナ・スミスですっていうのは自分で言ったんですよ。で、なんか変ですよね。まあそれは物語的に混乱させようとしているっていう可能性もありますけども、反応として変じゃないですかね。わざとらしいですよね。イブだって分からせる、信じ込ませるためにやっているようにしかちょっと僕には見えないですけどね。
My mother called me Eve.
はい、ここから彼女がどういう風に扱われてきたかを独白するんですよね。
Well, she wasn't my real mother, but she raised me. Do you want to hear the story? It's a real life fairy tale.
はい。わざわざおとぎ話って言うんですよね。
Across the road, where my parents first lived there, was a midwife called Florence. When Hannah was born, I was born at the same time. The midwife was there to help. I'd been throttled by the cord, probably wrapped around my neck by Hannah. The midwife told my mother I was dead. But I wasn't. She wrote all this stuff in a diary. Amazing what people will admit to on paper.
うん。
Florence took me home with her. Mother hadn't been expecting twins and had a healthy baby. I guess she was just happy for Florence to clean up, take away the evidence that this was anything but a happy occasion.
はあはあ。ここで反応しましたけどね。
Florence raised me in her home. I never left it. She kept me out of sight. It wasn't odd for people to see a midwife with a baby, carrying in supplies, washing nappies, that sort of thing. I never knew any different. I grew up looking out of my window and seeing her across the road. I thought it was like a reflection in the mirror. She was me.
She was me.
Yes. The first time we saw each other, it was strange. We both realised at the same moment, I think. We must have seen each other before, but there was this instant when we first realised it wasn't a reflection. The reflection was staring back. I think I was 5. It was my birthday. My reflection was wearing a party hat and waving. I knew what party hats were from books. And it suddenly occurred to me, today must be my birthday. I waved back and we just spent ages waving at each other and copying each other's movements.
また反応しましたね。
Fairy tales. Stories about lost princesses, evil witches, magical mirrors and lost children. So you see, even before I knew the truth, I'd found it in those stories.
ストーリーズっていう単語が出てきますね。
Florence was a warm, kind person, but she was broken, I guess. When I found her diary, I also found a biscuit tin with other stuff in it, older papers, letters, that kind of thing. Her story wasn't there. I never really spoke to her about it. I was far too young to really understand, I guess. I just put it together later, once I was older. She had loved children, planned to have a large family, but her husband died in the war. And that was back when you married for life. She never felt like she could marry again. Isn't that strange? She was a widow from her 20s. Well, I mean, I guess it was different then. You know, you married for life and she felt she could never marry again. I guess it was harder, a war widow. One of the dead. I don't know, maybe there was more to it than that. I don't really know. No, it was just me and her. Eve was the name they were going to call their first child. They talked about it and I'm going to try when he came back. Florence's family had a history of firstborn girls, so they were convinced it was going to be a girl. It's hard to know if this is all true. These are stories I remember, that I read when I was a child. Maybe I misread, maybe I misunderstood. Sometimes it's hard to remember what happened last week.
あれ一つ見てないかな。いたか。
Mother wanted me to grow my hair long, but I kept cutting it myself. I wanted to look like my reflection. She always had short hair when she was little. Mother would hide the scissors, but I would find a way. Cut it with a bread knife, something like that. My reflection would always leave her house and go on adventures, but I never could. Mother taught me at home, and I had books and TV. Oh, TV was magical, but it was only on when it wanted to be, so I spent a lot of time reading books.
これ飛ばしてましたね。 で、次がこの続きですね。この続きっていうかその後の続きですね。ここのはずです。お
Fairy tales. Stories about lost
これ
princesses.
はもう見ましたね。
I wanted to see my reflection. I thought that if I touched her, something would happen. We would become one. One girl. The fairy tale was over, the witch was dead, and I'd be restored to my rightful place.
あれ俺を見てないのか。
When I was 8, Mother died. She slipped down the stairs. It was an accident. I had read a diary at that point and I knew she wasn't my real mother. So I burned the diary that day and I left. Walked out and across the street.
嘘っぽいですよね。不幸な事故が周りで多すぎる。この辺も見てますよね。
She recognized me from the window. She told me to come inside and she hid me. They had made the attic into a place where Hannah could play. There was a dollhouse. She hid me up there. No one else ever went into the attic. It was her place.
んで
We were obsessed with fairy tales. Not just the pretty ones, but the traditional ones. They were dark and real, bizarre and violent. Felt like life. We had this huge old book that I think Mum must have bought from a library sale. The illustrations had thin tracing paper over them to protect them. They were in colour, shiny plates. At the front of the book was an index of illustrations. We read that more than the actual stories. We'd read aloud the captions and flip between pictures. There was something intimate about peeling back the tracing paper and dressing the pictures. Rapunzel's hair is cut. The eagle plucks out his heart. The princess pricks her finger. Just became our way of life. We would swap places and take it in turns to do things, and we were very careful. Whoever had been out that day would come back and write a detailed diary so that we were on the same page. We had a list of rules that said what we could and couldn't do in any given situation. It was exhaustive. We lived a second life through those rules. Rules for things that could only ever happen inside our imaginations. We would consider all the permutations of future events and agree rules to walk our way through them. If one of us got hurt, the other one would have to be hurt too. A grazed knee, a bruise. When I lost my tooth first, we had to pull out Hannah's to match. Once, I slept with a boy who was seeing another girl. The girlfriend came up to Hannah the next day and punched her in the face, gave her a huge black eye. That night, she had to do the same to me. And she almost went too far. I couldn't see out of that eye for days. She snuck frozen peas up for me from the kitchen. So much of our bodies was synchronised anyway. We started our period on the same day. All our childhood diseases, stomach bugs, nits.
Hmm. ここで疑問が生じるわけですよ。完全に同期していたと。両親にもバレることなく恋人にもバレることなく、しかしこの証言に来た時にあざがあったりなかったり、タトゥーがあったりなかったりするわけですよね。飲み物が違っ飲むものが違ったり、それはこの今言ってることに沿わないんですよね。だから成立しないんですよ。これは信用してはならないですよね、このストーリーはね。
Mum and Dad had never had any reason to notice. They were always busy. If Hannah was eating a lot, they didn't mind. She didn't put on any weight. That girl has a healthy appetite. If they heard us talking in the attic, they just thought it was Hannah playing one of her games, and that Eve was our imaginary friend. Once, she was already up and dressed and ready to go to school, and I snuck down for a piss. Mum saw me in my underwear, she went mad. Get dressed this instant! So I ducked into our bedroom, and seconds later, out came Hannah, dressed and ready. Mum was amazed.
そういうこともあるかもしれませんが、それぐらいじゃ済まないですよね。
When we weren't together, we'd send secret messages by tapping out a code that we'd learned from a book, the knock code, something prisoners of war would use. We'd tap them out on radiator pipes or the attic floor. Dad thought we had mice, but they couldn't find any. Bought a cat anyway. We loved our cat, Domino. He had this little bell around his neck to stop him from killing birds in the garden. And we used to write each other notes and put them in the bell, and we could send them to each other. Mum found some of the notes once, and she thought I was just writing to myself because our handwriting was identical. And we had our own words for things, so she didn't quite understand them anyway.
うん。
We were obsessed with fairy tales. Not just the pretty, pretty ones, but the traditional ones. They were dark and real, bizarre and violent. Felt like life. We had this huge old book that I think Mum must have bought from a library sale.
これは
The
見ましたね。
illustrations had thin and plucks out his heart. The princess pricks her finger. I'm not sure where the dollhouse came from. I don't know if it was given to them or they inherited it, and they wouldn't have had the money to buy it. It was so huge. It must have been taken up to the attic in parts and then reassembled up there. It's a beautiful thing. Wallpaper to scale, little furniture, the lights work, mirrors, beds, big duvets and pillows. We spent hours and hours playing in it, invented all these characters and families who lived there. We wrote paperwork from them all, passports, diaries, gave them all really elaborate stories. Once, a moth got trapped in there. We'd left a light on. It was making the most horrendous noise. We tried to kill it, but it was tough. We ended up crushing it under a copy of the Arabian Nights.
うん。これじゃないですね。
We were obsessed with fairy tales.
これは見たやつ。
There were always princes and princesses. They were the special people, more important than the other characters in their stories. We knew we were like that. Twins. Magical. We were the princesses. We had a poster of Princess Diana from the newspaper up in our attic. Had a pride of place. And underneath we used to put all our special things. When her engagement was announced, we were obsessed with everything she did. And later, when her life went so bad, we felt for her. Her divorce last year just kind of drew a line under things.
うん。
When beautiful people died, we always felt like it was a sign. You remember Princess Grace? Grace Kelly? She died in a car crash the year before we met Simon. We used a Ouija board to speak to her, and that gave us the power to find him. That's what we thought then. That people who died tragically leave some kind of magic behind. We used to share dreams. We used to wake up and write them down in our diaries immediately and compare them. Mum and Dad never knew what was going on. We got so good at it. We were so in sync that we'd use each other to cheat. If one of us had a hangover, the other one would go to school. Whoever was best at a subject would sit the exam. There were lots of differences between us. Some things one is better than the other at. Differences? She's a better driver than me. She passed the test for us. I tried to take it and nearly crashed the car. Learned that you can't rely on confidence to get you through everything. She is the shy one. She was especially shy around boys. If Hannah liked a boy, I would have to pursue him. It was that way with Carl. Hannah met him first. She had such a crush. I let him take my virginity. after a night that his band had played at. It got difficult. When I was with Carl, we would have sex, but Hannah couldn't let him see she was a virgin. She had lots of excuses. After a while, we decided that I should take Hannah's virginity. It's not that different to a bruise, pulling a tooth, a graze. We used a hairbrush. After that, we took it in turns, though. I was always the one who seduced the boys. Until Simon.
キーワードは出てきませんね。
Can you imagine? I tried to get pregnant too, but it didn't happen. I slept with so many boys, men. My body refused. I think my period stopped because hers had. I was pretty ill. I mean, how could we stay the same now? Felt like Hannah had really fucked things up. Set us down separate paths. We had become different.
サイモンと出会って花が妊娠してしまったって話をしてたんですよね。で、そうすると動機が取れなくなるわけですよね。
The parents decided there would be a wedding. And after the wedding, Hannah moved in with his parents. There was no way I could follow, so we were separated again. I stayed in the attic. It was hard. It's like I suddenly didn't exist. I would sneak out, but in case anyone recognised me, I started wearing a wig. Hannah and I would meet up in the park. I was trying to get pregnant. But I couldn't. I mean, I couldn't do it with anyone we knew, so it was sex with strangers. Drunk guys I'd met in clubs, in parks and alleyways. I was 17. It felt like I was being punished. But it was Hannah who had betrayed us. I had to stop when one of the guys gave me an STD. When we met up, it was disturbing. For the first time, my reflection, she didn't look like me. She was fatter, flushed. If anything, I was getting skinnier. I found it hard to look sometimes. We talked about what to do. Was it time to become our own people? I mean, that seemed like the right thing to do, but neither of us wanted it. We agreed that her and Simon would get their own place as soon as possible, and then I could move in. And that was the plan. Hannah had a miscarriage. This was late in the pregnancy and it left her infertile. Felt like the universe had corrected its course. We were aligned again. But Hannah and Simon were still living with his parents. They were married. Simon had a job at the Glaziers now. Derek had given him a full-time position after he left school. And then
And then
when beautiful people died, we always felt like it was a sign. You remember? I was living in the attic. It was a very hard time. I was depressed, was still pretty sick of the STD. And I came down one morning and they were dead. They were in bed and both had been sick. They'd thrown up a lot. And I'd slept through it. The police said it was the mushrooms they ate. Dad was a mushroom expert. I mean, he used to take us picking with him and he taught us how to recognise them. And there's no way you would have picked death caps. But the police believe that's what happened. They never even looked in the attic.
都合がいいですよね、そんなことを。
Yes, it was a cremation for the best. We both wore black and had veils, so it was easy. And after the funeral, everyone came back to the house. Hannah served up sandwiches, and I stayed out of sight. No. The parents decided there would be a wedding.
こっちですね。
The legal stuff was completed very quickly. Hannah moved back in with Simon. Eric gave Simon the week off to help with the move. He decorated, modernised wallpaper curtains. Hannah insists the attic be left as it was, dollhouse and all. Simon never went up there.
そんなことある
？It lasted about 6 months. I tried to carry on, but everything was different. Hannah insisted I not pretend to be her around Simon, let alone sleep with him. We didn't share him like the others. The rules had changed. Me living in the attic had become weird in a way it hadn't been before.
うん。
So I moved out. Got a small bed set. Got my tattoo to mark the occasion. I was singing in a bar in the evenings, so I had some money, enough money to cover my rent. And I've been doing something similar ever since. haven't put down any roots. I don't exist.
うん。ここからですね、ここからしばらく見てない部分があるので、じゃあ花はどうしたのかっていうのがありますよね。
So I moved out. He saw me singing one of my shows, pure chance. Not sure I remember what he was even doing there. Afterwards, I had a drink at the bar and he came over and we got talking. I knew who he was. Obviously, I knew who he was. But he didn't know who I was. He was fascinated by the likeness. He guessed my name from my tattoo. Told me it was a palindrome, like that would impress me. I enjoyed talking to him. It was amazing to be able to sit and interact and talk to him after all this time. He didn't tell me he was married. I'm not sure what he was thinking. He later told me it was like he was dreaming. A waking dream. No. No, he wasn't wearing his wedding ring.
うん。
Nothing else happened that night. We talked, then I said goodbye. Then next week I was singing the bar again and there he was. And again the next week, he offered to buy me a meal. I told him I had already eaten, and so we got chips and ate them on the beach instead. When we said goodbye, he asked me to kiss him. Romantic.
うん。
Yes. I thought about telling Hannah. I felt guilty after the kiss. But then it began to feel like this was the way it should be. Sharing, like we had before. He never mentioned her to me. There was the Simon with me and the Simon with her. It was almost like it was a different Simon. But after the kiss, the next time, he took me back to the house, to our parents' house, to their house. So, it was definitely him. I sometimes think he wanted to get caught to prove to himself that we were different people. He told me about his marriage, told me how his wife was completely different to me. I almost burst out laughing. I think it was that time, the first time at the house, in his bed, that I got pregnant. Amazing, right? This fucking magic sperm. And they say lightning doesn't strike twice. I didn't tell him. I was 3 periods. I had pretty irregular periods anyway, but 3. I had always thought we were infertile. Both of us. I didn't tell him. Just waited. Hannah and I were meeting for our birthday, and I told her because I thought she would be happy for us both. I think she was.
うん。つまり妊娠してたのはイブだったってことが分かりましたね。まあ妊娠できない体になった2人いたっていう前提に立たないといけないですけどね。
I told her it was one of my boyfriends, someone I had met in the bar. I think she was happy, but I could tell she was thinking, why couldn't it happen to her and Simon? They were the ones with the real life. Why not them?
うん。
Then she told me she wanted to help more. She said I should move in with her. She would come clean with Simon about me. I was family. I couldn't have a baby in a bedsit. I told her I didn't want to tell Simon. Told her to wait for the time being.
なるほど。
When she went home, Simon had a birthday tea waiting. Afterwards, she told Simon about me, told him I was pregnant. She wanted me to move in with them, this sister he didn't know she had. She knew that instant. The look on his face. She knew.
うん。
She sent him out of the house, kicked him out, called me up, crying, and I went round. I guess I had a feeling I could hear something was wrong in her voice, but I wasn't sure what it was. She called me sister on the phone. She never calls me that.
うん。
This was about 9. I went round and she was waiting for me. She was furious and so angry, the kind of anger you can only have towards yourself. We screamed at each other, argued, cried, we fought. I hit her back, left a bruise. I had my wig on from performing and she tore it off. Eventually we grew tired of fighting and I left.
まああざの説明はつきますけどね。
She was sat behind him. She had my wig on. And she'd been there all day. And she had blood on her. And she was in shock.
ちょっ と話が飛んだような感じがしますが、一つ見えてないですね。
This was about 9. I went round and she was waiting for me. She was furious and so angry, the kind of anger you can only have towards yourself. We screamed at each other, argued, cried, we fought. I hit her back, left a bruise. I had my wig on from performing and she tore it off.
この後にどうして、家に行ったか。謝るつもりはない。
No. The parents decided there would be a wedding after. This was about 9. It happened very quickly. We hardly had to talk to each other. We agreed almost silently. The baby was what mattered. We'd help each other. We cleaned up. We bagged up the broken mirror, her clothes. They're gone. We took him down to the cellar. We knew we had an alibi, and we wanted the body to be found later. We wanted to have suspicion on us, so we could then disprove it, rather than have it linger. Better to keep the body in the house than risk being seen with it. The watch, that was my touch, to make sure the alibi stuck.
ここが見えないんだよな。一つキーワード飛ばしてました。
It's like I told you before, I drove. I took the car and drove. I don't have my own car, but I have a spare set of keys. I just drove north. I wanted to think, put some space between me and them. Everything I told you before is true. I stopped at Glasgow. I was tired, exhausted. I pulled out and I hit a car. My car was okay, but I was worried about the baby, so I went to A&E to get the okay. Everything was fine. Slept in the car. When I woke, I tried to call Hannah from a payphone. She wasn't answering. And then I decided to drive back. I had decided that she was more important to me than Simon.
これは見たんですよね。これを見てないんだ。
Like I said before, it was 3, something like that. I walked in, saw Simon. He was on the floor of the living room. His throat had been cut. There was a lot of blood. Yeah, he was dead.
でウィッグの話になるわけですね。
This was 9, about 9. I went round and she was waiting for me. She was furious and so angry. She was sat behind him. She had my wig on. And she'd been there all day. And she had blood on her. And she was in shock. Her story is that she'd waited for him to come back. She put on my wig, some of my clothes, pretended to be me. They talked. She'd enjoyed being me. He said he wanted to be with me. Then he took out a present. Another mirror. Just like the one he'd given her earlier. That unique present. She went crazy, smashed the mirror. They argued, screamed. He hit her. So she grabbed a piece of the mirror and just swung it round. She cut his throat clean open. She'd only meant to scare him off. It happened very quickly. We hardly had to talk to each other. We agreed almost silently. The baby was what mattered. We'd help each other.
それで
My sister is gone. And she's never coming back.
言えた
Can you arrest someone who doesn't exist? I'd like to speak to a lawyer now. Please. You have no murder weapon. You have nothing. And all these stories we've been telling each other, just that. Stories.
はい、ということで、一つながりで見てきたわけなんですね。で、まあ、どう考えても、まあ彼女の言ってることは筋が通らないですよね。自分のもしサイモンの遺体が本当にあったとして、もう一人の女の人の、実在を多分証明できないんですよね。双子の妹っていうもの、彼女の証言とやっていたこと、それは本当か嘘か ちょっとわからないですけれども、だとして、こっちがイブでもう一人がハナだっていうことも証明できなくて、でまあイブ自身をやってなくて殺人犯したのはハナだっていう証拠もないわけですよね。でひょっとしたら双子の指紋っていうのは違うかもしれなくて、イブとハナの指紋は区別がつくのかもしれませんが、一卵性ソーセージでも指紋は違いますって出てますね。なので、警察としては指紋が違うこと、はひょっとしたら立証できているのかもしれませんが、この画面上もう一人の、花っていう人が同時に出てこないため、彼女の言っていることが全部本当かどうかはちょっと判断がつかないですね。はい、ちょっと電話してみましょうか。終わったかい？はい。そうか、それじゃあ分かったのか。君のお母さんがなぜあんなことをしたのか。はい。ならよかったよ。サラ、外で待ってるからログオフして出てきてくれ。はい。警察関係の人なのかもしれないですけどもね。ユーザーオフラインです。はい。もう連絡はつかないですね。はい。サラっていうのは子供につけようとしていた名前でどうのこうのっていう話がありましたが、完全にうまく物語を作るとしたらですよ、子供がそのお母さんのことを知るため、そして自分がどうしてこうなったのかを知るために、これを調べていたということが、わかるのかもしれませんが、一個のファイルが見つかりませんって書いてますね。それが何なんでしょうかね。一応実績の機能によると、もう一つ実績があってまだ解除してないんですよ。ラン ンダムアクセス機能っていうのがあるんですよね。えーとあれアンダーバーってどれだったの？アドミンランダムって入力するとランダムアクセスできるらしいです。なるほど。管理者権限っていうのを入れると取れるらしいですね。でもそれは別に何かわかるわけではないようなので、これで終わりですね。はい。僕の個人的な結論としては、この人が本当に妊娠していたんだとして、この人が一人で、全てを演じ、花とサラっていう人が、いて、花とイブか、がいて、私はイブで花が殺したんだっていうストーリーを作って、狂言の証言というかを行ったんじゃないかなっていう結論です。はい。2人の双子がいたっていうことを確実に証明できるものは僕はないような気がします。はい。ではこれを終了します。これはログオフとすると、はい、このセッションを終了しますかというふうに言ってます。いやー、面白かったんですね。このサム・バーローさんという方が SB じゃないかと思うんですが、一人の人に演技をしてもらってこれだけこう考えさせるストーリーを作るっていうのはよく思いつきましたね。ここにはその死体も出てこなければ、事実も何もないわけですよね。で、これ何がすごいって、脚本もすごいですけれども、この人の演技がすごいですよね。 多少二人、あれこれなんかタトゥーが逆にないか。まあ鏡になってるのかな。はい。二人 いるようないないような感じで微妙に演じていますよね。だから、双子がいて片方がいなくなっちゃった話なんだっていう風にまあ受け取ることもできるんじゃないですかね。僕はそういう風に納得できないですけども、さっきのねあざ、あれはメイクでできるわけですからね。で、一つ定かじゃないのは、まあ警察が本当にあるっていう前提で、指紋がね双子が違うのであれば、その2つの指紋の違いに気づいているはずなんですよね。で、その証拠、それを見せないんですよね。指紋が2種類ありますよっていう風に画面には出てこないんですよ。その辺がちょっとミソかなと思いますね。Search if you stuck, you could always なんとか。はい。Her story ということでございました。はい。まあ完全にネタバレしてしまいましたが、サム・バーローさんは、新作インモラリティが控えておりまして、で来年かな。でその前にテリングライズというゲームを作っています。でこちらもやってみたいなと思っておりますので、もし、このハーストーリーが良かったなという方はテリングライズも、ちょっとチェックしてみてはいかがでしょうか。ではハーストーリーこれにて終了でございます。今回はここまで。それではまた。